Hey guys, it is Carl Brown from GuitarLessons365.com. We're going to finish Van Halen 1 today. So we've done all of Van Halen 1. We're going to finish it with the last track on Van Halen 1. Fittingly, with On Fire, this one is a blast. This is the last track, of one of the greatest albums of all time. And it's a fitting ending. It is so fun to play. Got some killer riffs in it. Really cool, quick little solo from Eddie as well. So the band is definitely on fire on this one, so we're going to check it out. Before I get into it though, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and like and comment on the videos. That really helps me be able to continue doing all this stuff on YouTube. And very important, and also probably the best way to support what I do here on YouTube, is to join my Guitar Academy. You'll see a link in the description below. That link will also give you a free 7-day trial to my academy. So my academy contains all of my guitar courses, covering everything from complete beginner stuff to more advanced courses in techniques, improvisation, ear training, theory, guitar tone. So you'll get all of my courses, all access to all of them by being a member of my academy, and it will help support what I do here on YouTube, because if I don't have my academy, I can't do free song lessons on YouTube, obviously. So please go check it out, and I hope to see you there. So let's start with this tune. So we are, as per Dave era Van Halen, we are tuned down a half step. So every string down a half step. So the E down to an E flat, A down to an A flat, D down to a D flat, G down to a G flat, B down to a B flat, E down to an E flat. All right. You probably know that if you're trying to play a Van Halen song, but people get mad at me if I don't call them out. So I'll put them in the description too, just to irritate you more. So let's start here with this intro though. So we have this. Then it goes in kind of really the main riff of the song. So what we're doing here is we're going to be doing, they're really kind of halfway between power chords and full major chords, and they all have the fifth in the bass. So we're going to start here with a E major right here. So how you would typically play an E major is 7 on the A string, and then bar the 9th fret across the D, G, and the B. But we're going to add the 5th in the bass here, which makes it almost sound like you're playing it an octave lower. So basically, we're going to have 7 on the low E and the A together. So on some of these chords, he's going to be playing basically strings 6 through 3. You just hear those. And to make it a full major chord, sometimes you'll hear it play, I'll add that. You'll hear the full B string, the full major chord by adding the B string. So you're strumming 5 strings instead of 4. Kind of, so you can kind of switch it up. Really in the beginning, you might hear, you can kind of hear that note in there. So I would call them mostly major chords. So with, but if you just hit the power chord, which means omitting the B string, it sounds fine too. So anyway, we take that chord shape from the 7th fret, then take it to the 5th, then down to the 3rd, back up to the 5th. So 7, 5, 3, 5, then down to 2. So, and then here we have he's just sliding into the 7th fret on the low E string and bending it up. And then go back through those chords again. Except instead of going to the 2nd fret there, right there he starts another fill. So he kind of cuts the chord progression short. So we just have this. Here. So that's a bend at the 4th fret on the G. And release it, and you can pull off the 2nd fret and then go back to the 4 and start tremolo picking up the string. And then when we get to the 16th fret, so an octave from that 4, we do a series of bends there. So All right, and now we have this little harmonic lick that happens a couple times in the song, and it's played like this. It's played a little bit longer, a little bit later on the track. So what is going on there? It can be kind of deceiving. You're going to see people play this a lot different, but sometimes a little bit different. A lot of people will just mute, just hit the mute hits just on the D string, but it's not just doing the D string. So what we have here is the first time he goes into it, it's played a little bit differently, and then he gets into the full 4-note pattern. So what is the 4-note pattern? Let me show you that first. Okay, so what is going on there? So first, I'm laying my ring finger across really the 6th fret here. So there's not really a strong harmonic there. So it's just kind of muting the A string and the D string. Now, but you can see how my finger is slightly angled. So the note that's actually, when it gets to the G string, I'm not over the 6th fret. I'm just behind it. So where he's actually getting this harmonic is not the 5th fret or the 6th. He's at about, I would say, like 5.8. So he's just, if you break the whole fret space from this fret to this fret into like 10, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.5 is right in the middle. It's right around 5.8. That's the note he's getting. So, and when you see things like this, you would think this is just kind of a thing that he did one-off in the studio, and he can't recreate this every time. He does it the exact same way each time he plays it live. So, very recreatable. So this is how he's doing it. So the actual 4-note pattern. Now he doesn't. When he first comes in with it, he's not the full 4-note pattern. I'll cover that in a second. But what he's doing is, since he's got that harmonic point in the bottom of his ring finger there, so he can get that harmonic on the G string, right? But the rest of the finger is kind of further up, kind of angled, so we don't really have harmonics there. It's just kind of muting the strings. You can also add it by helping mute it down there. So then, after you have that shape there, it's a little bit tricky, then you pick the A string, then the D string, then back to the A string. So it's 1, 2, and then you hit the harmonic. So A, D, A, then that note. So wait this. A, D, A. So the only thing, you're hearing 2 muted strings, A, D, A, then that harmonic on the G, which I got. So a lot of people are like, I can't get that to sound exactly right. It's because they're usually just muting the D string. They get the harmonic, but they're just doing all this 1, 2, 3, 10, and they're just hitting the mutes on the all on the D string. But so what? Or they'll mute on the D, they'll hit the D, and then they'll kind of mute it again, do a muted hit, and then mute on the D, whatever. But if you listen, slow it down a lot, you're going to hear the muted D string, muted A, muted D, and then back to the muted A. So when he first goes into this, though, he doesn't have time. He kind of goes into kind of halfway or a little bit after the beginning of the lick. So he starts from that muted D. It's just a 3-note lick to start. So it's the muted D, muted A, and then the harmonic. So it's just 3 hits because, like I said, he kind of comes in a little bit later. And then from there, he does that 4 full-note lick, which is A, D, A, harmonic. And then the last one, he'll miss that last harmonic the 4th time you hear it because he goes to the riff. All right, so we have this. All right, now later on in the song, you're basically just going to hear that play long. All right, so you got to get that harmonic right and then get those mutes. But then it's just a 4-note pattern of picking across A to D to A, then that harmonic on the G string. All right, so from there we get to this main riff, which every time he's usually playing this main riff, especially in the verse, he's always got different fills going on, so I'm going to cover them all. But so this main riff before the vocals come in. All All right, so we have this. So that's the low E string first, then the second fret on the D, the octave, then back to the low E, and then back to that second fret on the D. So then I do the open G string. So after you hit that open G, then you come down and hit a couple of muted hits on the low E string again. Then back to the second fret on the D, back to the low E hit once, then back to the second fret on the D again. And it resolves that into just a D major, well, it's really kind of a D power chord. So it's just like open D string, second fret on the G, third fret on the B. So the whole riff done slow. So that's just kind of up to the chord. Then you do that again. Now you, instead of ending it with a D power chord, just the A power chord. So we have this. D to the A. Now in between those, he's doing a lot of them. Does a lot of that in the song. So it's kind of like. So then it goes back to the one that ends with D. It's the same riff. So we did the riff basically 3 times. Ended it with a D, then an A, then a D. The power chords: D power chord, A power chord, D power chord. And you're throwing some slides when you start over. And then we're gonna end this intro section with some harmonics. So that's just a harmonic at the 7th fret on the high E, 5th fret on the G, and then 7th fret on the B, 7th fret on the G. Slide down into an A power chord. All right, now we get to the verse sections. Now the verse sections always kind of have a pretty similar fills throughout, but they look like this. The first one. Then it gets to the pre-chorus there. So what he's doing, he starts with kind of hit E power chord, then you kind of tug it on the low E string. Then he does some slides up and down the strings a couple times. The first verse, he does it a little bit differently. He starts with a down the low E string, and then up into the D major chord. So you think that would be, you want to slide down to that D, but the very first time you hear him play it, he reverses that. The other times in the song, he's always doing up, then sliding down to that D. But the very first time you hear the song, though, it's kind of reversed. So just to be precise with it, we have this down, up, then to the G chord, power chord. Kind of does a little kind of a aggressive rhythm on that with a D major chord, and then we're going to make it a D sus4 chord by adding the 3rd fret on the high E string, and then back down to the D, and then back to the main riff. So after we get to that main riff, and it's the main riff version that ends with a D, we have a fill, which is just a bend at the 9th fret on the G string. And then he's got that kind of the phase 90 on there, and he'll kind of go down he's kind of muting, sliding down the bottom 3 strings, just doing some triple picking, and then catch that A at the end. So it's in the space there that he would have played the riff that then ended on the A. Instead he's doing that fill. So we have those. And then we go back to the So it's the exact same thing, except now, like I talked about before, when he's doing those slides, you're going. He's doing it up and down. So the rest of the song, you're gonna hear that. So into the D chord, sus4, then the main riff, ending with the D. And then instead of that fill, we have this. Now that's just a trill between 12 and 15 on the B. And you're just gonna, while you're doing that trill, just gonna tap anywhere you want really. Tap the 17th fret and just slide it up the string. All right, so we have that whole verse is this. And that takes us to the pre-chorus. So you gotta jump down real quick and do this. All right, so that's a quick little pre-chorus. We're gonna start it here with this. That's 3 on the low E string and then 2 on the A, 2 on the D. And you resolve that into this F sharp power chord off the 2nd fret of the low E string. And then he's got kind of his just 8th note rhythm downstroke, kind of muted. So do that again. And then it gets a little bit different when you go up higher. We just go up to this D power chord off the 5th fret of the A string. You hit that a few times, and then take that down a half step to the 4th fret. And then do the 8th note muting on that, and then back up. 1, 2, 3. So we have this. All right, that takes us into the chorus. Now the chorus is interesting because there's a delay effect on it. It's kind of like a little slapback delay that he's got going. I know he used an Ecloplex and stuff. I don't know if they actually did this one from the board or whatever. It's hard to see because it's obviously, this is in the era of before like tap tempo delays. So I don't know if he actually incorporated this delay in or he just played the delays, like physically played it on guitar instead of relying on delay to do it when he played live. But anyway, so what the delay is doing is we say without delays, if we wanted to recreate the sound without it, it's like. So now what he's doing is he's hitting that dun, dun, and the delay is catching that second one. Dun, 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 dun. So it's hard to do. So anyway, I don't know what he did live. There's no really good live footage of him playing this song, especially back in the day. I just can't. It's all grainy, shot from about 3 miles away. Looked like it was filmed by Abraham Zapruder. I can't really tell what's going on. So anyway, we're basically, I'm gonna just do it without delays. So you can choose to, if you can set your delay to do that repeat, that's cool. I'm assuming most people aren't gonna go through that trouble. So we'll just do it without. So it's gonna start here, this little G major triad. So we have this 9th fret on the D, 7th fret on the G, 8th fret on the B. So wait, this. So you're gonna do that. I go dun dun. So I'm just kind of my last second was a little bit delayed. So I'm just down, up, and then I do the same thing on this D major, which is across the 7th fret of the D, G, and the B. Now, to really make it sound better, mute them each one like. So I'm not doing like that. So he's muting it so the delay can catch the next one. So you're doing it like that. So you can just go to kind of recreate the sound. So I'm just doing that mute and then upstroke, mute. And then the same thing on that D. And then up here, this A major triad, which is the 11th fret on the D, 9th fret on the G, and then 10th fret on the B. So we have this. And then this is a low E string and open, let it ring. So we have this. All right, so then we have a really killer riff. So this whole bridge section is really kind of two riffs that I'm putting together here that leads us into the solo. So it sounds like this. And that takes us into the solo. So what is going on there? Sounds crazy. So it's actually not that bad to play. You just got to be able to skip your pick around from the low E to the up, the high E and B, and hit some upstrokes there. So we're gonna have. So he's really basing this off a really a G minor chord, but you're not hitting the whole chord. So there's really, I'm putting these other notes down just in case I hit those strings. It's not going to sound bad. But what you're going to do is play 0-2 on the low E string, muted. And when you come down with that 2, you're going to play the full bar. Like I said, I'm playing a full F sharp minor chord there. And then what you're basically going to try to do is go over to the high E and the B string and hit a quick upstroke, staccato upstroke. So as soon as you hit it, kill it. So that's the first one. So I'm really doing the muting here. So because then the next one you have to do the muting, which is going 0-3 on the low E string, and then the top two strings down open. That same muted sound. So you gotta cut. So it's a kind of don't let them ring. So it mutes by just leaving that chord, and then the open strings you got to come down and mute. And then we continue kind of the same lick, but now over off the A string. So 0-3 on the A, and I'm still grabbing like it's like an A. It's really a C sus2 chord here. There's a bar in here, but what I'm doing is hitting really just the open A to the 3rd fret, 0-3 on the open A string, muted, and hitting those top two strings with that upstroke. And then we do the same thing now, 0-2 on the A, and now you're gonna hear the whole chord. You play the whole chord. So that same shape you're playing here, just move it down. So it's a bar across these 5 strings on the at the 2nd fret, but then you're playing the 4th fret on the D and the 4th fret on the G. And going to a B sus2 chord. So we have this. Repeat. So it's like really, you really kind of skip it across strings pretty rapidly. So that's the hard part. So you do it 4 times, and then we have kind of a single note riff. So that's, so we have 0-2-2. So and then you hit the second fret twice. So 3 times. So 1, twice, I'm sorry. So 0, 2, 2, 0. And then the third fret twice in the open E. So it is. And then 3 on the A, open A, and 2 on the A. So we hear this kind of unmuted first, then muted. Same riff though. So he's kind of, the first one's unmuted, the second one's muted, and the third and fourth one are kind of, you know, halfway in between. He doesn't really care. Notice I'm doing some slides and stuff. He's kind of doing a lot of those in there when he's kind of resetting up to play a riff again. All right, we've made it to the solo. Now, this solo is very pattern-oriented, which is not completely common for Eddie's playing. This is a common pattern that he plays, but he doesn't really base his entire solos off of like patterns. He's really kind of, you know, just going for it and just going doing tons of crazy stuff. So this one kind of uses the same pattern for 95% of the solo. So it looks like this. All right, so this is a lick that he's used in quite a bit, especially in the early days. So we're going to be doing this. It kind of slides in this first note, but then we get to the actual pattern. And the notes change, but the pattern doesn't really. So we're going to have this. So first pattern you're going to see is going to be hammering, play 4, hammer 5 and 7 on the A. Now you're going to play the same 3 notes on the D string, but you're going to pick them. So that's a thing like you'll see Eddie, that's a lick that you see Eddie do a lot when he has little 6 tuplets. Like you'll see it in like Spanish Fly and stuff, where he'll do the lowest pitch string, he'll do it as hammers. And then the next string, he's going to palm mute and pick them. You hear this in a Girl Gone Bad, everything. So we have, and then we have basically the second half of the lick, which is we're going to be play 4 on the G, hammer 5, pull back off the 4. So it's a quick little. So it's not like it's. Then over to 7 on the D, back to that 4 on the G, and then play 5, 7 on the D. So that's the pattern. So we have these first 6 notes, and then, and that's the full pattern. So how am I picking that? So I start with a downstroke, do the hammer the next 2 notes, and then I start with another downstroke here and go down, up, down on the D string. And then when I get over to the G string, that's an upstroke, so I can do outside the string picking. And then we have just hammer on, pull off, and then down on the D string there, then back to the up, so more outside the string picking. And then 5, 7, we're just down, up. So once you get that, just practice that pattern there. So once you just got the pattern so you don't have to think about it, it's kind of in muscle memory, then we just take it across the scales that he's doing. But the pattern, there's one little thing where it just kind of goes straight up, but for the most part, its pattern doesn't change. So now we take that same pattern, but play it with a different set of notes. The notes that we're going to be playing it with now are going to be 5, 7, 9 on the A and the D, and then 5, 7 on the G. So that's that same pattern used across those notes. So just that, right? And then hammer 5, 7, 9, pick 5, 7, 9, upstroke here to 5th fret, hammer 7, pull back off the 5, downstroke on the 9 on the D, upstroke on that 5th fret on the G, and then down up on the 5, 7. So you can see it's the same pattern, just moved up. Different notes in the scale. All right. From there we have this, which is the exact same thing we did at the 4th fret, just 2 frets higher. So the same fret spacing. So that was kind of a trick that Eddie did. He liked symmetrical stuff a lot. He wasn't worried about too much about keys and how scales were laid out. He did his own thing with it, and he liked to create like what I call really kind of melodic shapes and just take them across the strings. And when you play them up to speed, it sounds fantastic. It sounds really unpredictable and really cool, musical, and especially when he knows how to resolve it correctly. So we have this so far. From there, we're going to do this. Now this one sounds a little bit dissonant, but when you play it up to speed, it doesn't sound that bad. But if you slow it down, those are the notes that are there. So we have 5. And these can both be hammered on. 7, hammer 8, 10, and then move up a fret, the 8th fret of the D, and hammer 9, 11, and then resolve it to the 8th fret there on the G. So that's the only one that's different. So we have this. Now we start the same pattern that we did 4th fret and 6th fret. We're going to start it at the 9th fret. So same thing we did there and there. Which I mean the same fret spacing. It's not like a half step, whole step spacing. And then the more spread out one like we did at the 5th fret, here at the 10th. So 2 whole steps each, but you know, the pattern stays the same. So far we have this. Now we take the whole step one up here to the 12th fret now. So it's at 12, 14, 16 there on the A and D, and then 12 and 14 on the G. So you do a full pattern there. And then we're going to end the solo now. After you get to that, you've ended the pattern. Go back up to the G string and play 12, 14, 16 on the G. Then up to 12 on the B string, and then it's going to do a trill between 16 and 12 on the B. Whole solo slow. All right, so after the solo, we go back to the main riff, just kind of like we did in the beginning, where we just played the main riff through full like 3 times and then end it with a fill with more harmonics. And then that same harmonic lick that we did before, a little bit longer. So we have this. All right, so we're just basically that same riff, just like we played in the intro, except that those ending harmonics we had before, that we had to be in the intro, right before the, you know, the little harmonic riff, and then oh, whatever. Well, the harmonics we did at the beginning. This is basically the same riff leading up to those harmonics, and then instead of those harmonics, we have these. So we have the harmonic at the 12th fret on the G, 12th fret on the high E, then the 5th fret on the B, and the high E. So, sorry. And then 7th on the B, and then there's a quick 7th on the G before he hits the A power chord. So there's, and then from there, he's gonna jump into that harmonic lick that we did before. You can start it kind of with the 3-note version first, and then the 4-note lick. A, D, A. Harmonic. So let's just play it a little bit longer. All right, now we get to the last verse, which is really similar to the first verse. It's just the fill. The first fill is a, well, let's just say this. And remember, we're always going to be sliding up and then down like, and then a D, sus. It's this first fill here, which is the big difference. Instead of going and kind of doing a muted hits, muted tremolo, picking down, he just goes, he does that. He just holds the note and just does the tremolo into that A. And then the same thing after that. So, just like in the first verse, we end it with it. So we get that little lick that we did. So it's pretty much the same thing pretty much for each verse. And then we get to the same pre-chorus. And then the same chorus. And that just keeps going with Michael Anthony just screaming. It's amazing. It's a great way to end the album, so it just kind of fades out. So, great track, amazing album, and damn, I miss Eddie. I swear, this is still really tough, but I'm glad we could finish Van Halen 1 for him, and there's going to be plenty of Van Halen on the way. Do not worry about that. I guess number 2 is next. I'm down for it. All right, I'll see you guys then.